BibleWorm, reading the Bible with BibleWorm.
Welcome to BibleWorm, getting to the core of the biblical text. I'm Dr. Robert Williamson, professor of religious studies at Hendrix College and theologian in residence of Canvas Community in Little Rock.
And I'm Dr. Amy Robertson, Director of Lifelong Learning at Congregation or Chadash in Sandy Springs, Georgia. We're here every week to discuss the biblical text, both as biblical scholars and as people of faith, one Jewish and one Christian.
This week we're reading Matthew 20, 1-16, often called the parable of the laborers in the vineyard, in which the kingdom of heaven is said to be like a landowner who pays the laborers a full day's wage no matter how long they've worked. We wrestle with the abject unfairness of this wage system and empathize with the workers who have labored a long day in the hot sun. Yet we also marvel at the generosity of the vineyard owner, who gives everyone what they need for the day, no matter how much work they've done. Maybe we think in the kingdom of heaven, people are not rewarded for the labor they provide, but rather receive what they need to live a full and abundant life. If we read ourselves as the landowners, this becomes a lesson on how we should conduct our own economic practices, not only paying fair wages, but giving generously until everyone has enough. And if we read God as the landowner, then this becomes a parable about God's radical and endless generosity that welcomes more and more people into the kingdom and treats us all as people of dignity and worth. It's a beautiful and troubling text. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Amy, how are you this week?
I am okay. The full answer is like fair to middling. It's a little rocky in the world of Amy. However, I got a very, very good and important idea for myself and for society the other day, and I would like to share it with you. Yeah. Are you familiar with NPR's Little Desk concerts?
I am, yeah.
So like you go sit at I don't really watch them, but I don't know. All these I feel like people have been discovered. They send in these videos of themselves playing just in a totally chill environment with a desk. Like the Indigo Girls played one recently. They have already been discovered, but it's like a thing. Yeah. And they've just opened up the competitive field for this coming year's Little Desk concert, I guess, contest. I don't know. They're going to choose someone to be on it. And remember that amazing piece of music that I wrote early in the pandemic, The Internet is Broken?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It was so of the moment. It had 2 ukulele chords in it because I didn't know how to play ukulele, but what else do you do during a pandemic except learn 2 chords? And it was this very
That's coming back
sorrowful
to me now. Yeah.
ballad that I would sing whenever the internet went out, because the level of stress in my household whenever we lost internet was I was in a meeting and my spouse was in a meeting and the kids were supposed to be in school and all of a sudden everything is, whatever. So then we would run and get our ukuleles and sing. So I think this is the moment for me to become an internet phenom.
Yeah.
Through NPR, which is how that happens.
Yeah, I love that.
Don't you think I should submit that? I should not.
I think that would be amazing. I think it would be wonderful. And I remember that we had lots of responses to that where people would comment or whatever that oh, Amy's song was amazing.
People
in our little
really
world here, in the little
moved.
BibleWorm world, it moved people.
Yeah, it is a very moving, true to life story. However, then when I won, which I obviously would, they would invite me to come give a concert and be like, "Oh, I don't have any other songs." That's the only thing I have.
You have a whole group. You have a whole music career, Amy. You're a
I have to write some more real quick.
The genres are very different, I suppose, between.
I'll write a new one called Fair to Midland.
Fair to Did you get that saying from me, or is that something you say independently of me?
I got it from Oregon Trail.
Oh, I wonder
that
where
was
I got
one
it
of
from.
the
Maybe I got it from
ways
you.
you could be. Maybe you got it from Oregon Trail.
Maybe I never played Oregon Trail. So I didn't get it directly from there. But I say fair to Midland fairly often when people ask me how I am. And I don't know. I thought it just came from my upbringing or something, but I did not grow up on the Oregon Trail. So I don't know. Amy, I love your idea. I have two counterpoints. Counterpoint one is I think the desk is actually tiny and not just little. Tiny desk. Tiny desk. It's a tiny desk. Which makes it sound less intimidating. You might have said tiny desk. I think you said little desk.
No, I think I said little desk. I think I was imprecise in my branding of this competition. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that because we were, just last week we were doing the Ash Wednesday text about micro people. And so I have like sizes in my head. I'm like, oh no, I think it's tiny. My other counterpoint is you suggested that maybe you could become an internet sensation. And I would like to propose that you, in fact, already are an internet sensation. Here we are on BibleWorm. I mean, there's probably like 7 people listening to us right now. Sensational.
We're influencers.
We don't need no tiny desk.
My daughter went to a concert last week at our synagogue and was writing like sort of like in the parlance of the TikTok world, was writing what she thought of all the soloists, and they were all positive. She only gives positive reviews, but they were so funny that I kind of want to reach out to these like really quite renowned singers and say, would you like to hear a TikTok rendition of, a positive review of your performance at our synagogue last week? Because I'm going to share one with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That would be, I love that she only does positive reviews.
I mean,
that makes me so happy.
Not necessarily of the dinners that I make, but of, in that context.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
Lover, not a fighter.
Okay, Amy, so today, sitting at our regular sized desks, we're going to read Matthew 20, verses 1 to 16 together. This is a really nice parable of Jesus. It's actually one of my more favorite texts, I think, in the New Testament. I don't know, we'll have to see as we go, but I like it. I think there's a lot. It's like your positive reviews. I think there's lots of positive things that one can maybe take out of this parable.
Oh, good.
I hope so. Now it's going to be like the most depressing podcast we ever did.
I mean, how bad can it be? That's a bad question to ask. Okay.
Yeah, anyway. So we are in the second Sunday of Lent. We have done our special Ash Wednesday episode on the lost sheep and the micro people. And now, and then last time we were talking about that complicated text about asking people to leave your community and also forgiving people
and
endlessly.
Also forgiveness and how, and it was messy.
It was messy.
Yeah.
In a way that, Lent is messy, and also trying to live out the kingdom of heaven on earth is also messy. And so, I mean, probably fair enough. Here we find ourselves in Matthew 20, 1 to 16. Is there anything you think we need to... I mean, there's lots of interesting stuff in Matthew that we're not talking about, and we actually moved very slowly through the beginning of Matthew and lingered in the Sermon on the Mount for quite a while. And now we're kind of racing through Matthew. I mean, it's not racing compared to the way we deal with, say, Genesis, but, we're accelerating. Anything in particular you think we need to talk about to get us to today's text, or do you think it kind of stands on its own?
I mean, I think it kind of stands on its own. It's in the context of all these different teachings that really have a wide range of subjects. As you mentioned, we were talking about what to do when there's a community member who's really causing harm to your community. And then we talked about forgiveness. Chapter 19 that we didn't read talks about divorce, and then tells that story that we read in the other Gospels of the person who wants to get into the kingdom of heaven and has done all your basic things, but wants the bonus point or whatever. And Jesus says, well, then sell all your stuff. And he says,
right. Oh, yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like that answer. So, I mean, I feel like this is just sort of picking up again with the next. I don't have anything in particular that I think we need to know. Do you?
Yeah, no, I think that's. I don't. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And one of the nice things about parables is they kind of stand on their own, and it's interesting to think about where they are in context. But the parable, I think we can just discuss as a parable. This is going to be another parable of what the kingdom of heaven is like, which we've been talking a lot about that, even all the way back to the Sermon on the Mount in some sense. Like, this is what it's like to live a righteous life, to live out the kingdom on earth. And then we had those parables of the weeds, and then we had who's the greatest in the kingdom, and we got to talking about the little child, and so this is continuing sort of a theme about what is the kingdom of heaven like, and just to remind ourselves that we've been working on that idea as having both a present earthly component that contrasts to the kingdom of Rome, and also this sort of eternal component when the kingdom comes in its fullness. And we've been kind of trying to figure out, how do you read the text with a foot in both of those, like both the completion of the kingdom yet to come, but also the inbreaking of the kingdom into the world. Jesus prays in the Lord's Prayer, which we talked about in the summer, "Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven." And that's kind of, I think, what we're trying to work on, is what is the kingdom going to be like, and then also what does it look like when we live it out here and now.
Yeah.
So we're in Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 to 16. This parable is sometimes called something like the CEB that I'm reading titles it "The Workers in the Vineyard," or "The Laborers in the Vineyard." You'll sometimes see it. Amy Jill Levine, one of the things that I learned from her, which I really love, is if you retitle parables, you can often see different things in them. The title sometimes sets our expectations for what we're going to see. And so maybe we'll play around with that idea. If we retitled it, what might we take from it? We're in Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 to 16. Who's Jesus talking to?
I think the last time it said who he was talking to, it said his disciples. But
Yeah, I think that's right.
But it seems like they're, at least in the last chapter, are in a somewhat public place, because some random person came and asked him that question about, how do I get eternal life? So I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know who's listening to him talk right now.
In verse 1923, we get Jesus said to his disciples. So I think I think you're exactly right. That's the immediate audience, but maybe this is a more public thing as well. But he's addressing the disciples anyway. To me, that's important, because sometimes things have a different edge to them if he's talking to the scribes and Pharisees versus if he's talking to his disciples. And so how do we contextualize what he's saying?
And one other thing, you asked me about context, and I said I have none, but here's one thing. The verse right before this chapter is, "Many who are first will be last, and the last will be first."
Yes.
And then that's how this parable basically ends, too.
That's right.
So it sort of is like, maybe this parable is all, in a way, explaining what is that? What might that look like? What does that mean?
That's really helpful, Amy. And because the thing we're talking about in chapter 19 is about giving up one's possessions, and sort of how does one work? Like, what do one's possessions and how you think about your economic status have to do with your participation in the kingdom? So you got the story of the rich man, and then the disciples saying, "Look, we gave up stuff." And then Jesus says that. And then that helps me with this, because this is also going to be about economics in an important way.
A really different way of thinking about it.
Yeah. And then we're going to come back to that reiteration, so that connects to what came before. That was super helpful. I appreciate your making that connection. Okay, I'm going to start in 20, verse 1, and I'm going to read through verse 7. And I am in the Common English Bible. "The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. After he agreed with the workers to pay them a denarius, he sent them into his vineyard. Then he went out around 9 in the morning and saw others standing around the marketplace doing nothing. He said to them, 'You also go into the vineyard, and I'll pay you whatever is right.' And they went. Again around noon, and then at 3 in the afternoon, he did the same thing. Around 5 in the afternoon, he went and found others standing around. And he said to them, 'Why are you just standing around here doing nothing all day long?' 'Because nobody has hired us,' they replied. He responded, 'You also go into the vineyard.'" Okay, Amy, let's just start with this first little moment in the text when he goes out and hires the original workers. Do you have just like an image in your head about like how you picture where they are, what they're doing? Why are those guys out there?
That's a really interesting question. What I picture, and I don't think I even had realized I was picturing this, is, there are areas around where I live that early in the morning, if you drive by, there's always a group of men standing in a parking lot.
Yes.
In my community, they're usually Latino men who, my understanding is that they are looking for a day's work, and that different either landscaping companies or construction companies or someone will come by and say, I need people who have this skill set, and then we'll take them to a job for the day and pay them for the day's work. So that's what I'm picturing. I'm not sure what the biblical version of the Home Depot parking lot is, but
Yeah, no, I really love that connection, Amy, because I think it like takes this parable and it connects it to our own experience, like really just, straight out of the gate. I remember that in Atlanta. I think maybe in many places it's the Home Depot parking lot. Atlanta also had some labor pools where you could go and, there's just like, here's the place in this part of the city where you go, and if people need a day worker, you come. But I love that connection because it's, people who are going to the labor pool or the Home Depot parking lot, they're there because they need work, because they need to feed their families, because they're not on anybody's payroll, right? You would much rather be a salaried employer of a construction company than standing in the Home Depot parking lot hoping that someone will pick you up for the day. And so that helps me sort of get in the mindset of these workers. They've got families at home, like they need to feed their kids. They're not in anyone's employ. And so there's a vulnerability about it, I think, in the ancient world, as in the modern world.
Yeah.
The other piece that you were reminding me about, just talking about, you get picked up from the parking lot, and you sort of hesitated when you were like, and people pay you. And I don't know quite what was going on in your head, but
what was going on in my head is I realized like I don't know how any of that works. I've never been involved, I've never been involved as a worker or a hirer in that situation. So I know someone who's a property manager, and she just said she would pay them at the end of the day, but I don't know when they agree upon what that I don't know how that works. But you're right, it is an incredibly vulnerable position to be in as a worker. I can't even imagine getting in some random person's car and they're taking you to some work site. Like, yeah.
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. And, there are certainly people who pick up day laborers and pay them fairly and treat them well and drop them back off where they said they would drop them off. There are also people who will exploit day workers, certainly in the modern world, I imagine in the ancient world. And, I have friends here who tell stories about, they get picked up in the morning, they work a day, and then they don't bring them back to the city, or they charge them, I'm going to pay you $10 an hour, but then I'm going to charge you $40 for driving you to the site and back. So you're actually only making half what I said I was going to pay you.
Right.
And so you're at the mercy of the person that you're working for. And I'll pay you at the end of the day. I'm not going to pay you up front so that we don't have to deal with all of this stuff. I'm going to pay you at the end of the day. So there's a trust level that is involved there that may or may not be warranted. What this guy says he's going to do is to pay the workers a denarian. Is that does the NRSV have that translation?
The NRSV has that as a note that's what the Greek literally says, but it translates it to the usual daily wage.
Yeah, I think that's more helpful, honestly, than it's funny that the Common English Bible normally is trying to make things very clear.
Yeah, usually the Common English Bible is more helpful in that way. But.
Yeah. So a denarian was the usual day's wage. And so what he has offered is a fair work. Like, you work for me for a day, I'll pay you for a day's work. I don't know what else there is to say about that. But if you trust him that he's at his word, like, this is a very fair deal that he has made for them. Right.
Not ridiculously generous, not taking advantage. This is, it's fair.
Yeah. Do you make anything of the early in the morning? Like, this parable is going to move through times throughout the day. And that's going to have an effect later in the parable. But I'm just curious about, like, this is the first, like, you sort of have the image that it's like daybreak and things are just getting started and these folks are already out. The landowners are already out.
Yeah, I guess early in the morning makes me think there must be a lot of work to do. And the laborers are serious about getting work for the day. It's sort of like the early bird catches the worm.
Right.
And also maybe the hirer is serious about getting laborers who are serious about working.
Right.
So like this is an industrious group.
Yeah.
That has come together in the early hours would be my guess.
I have a colleague at Hendricks who most of us hate teaching 8 o'clock classes, but he teaches 8 o'clock classes, only teaches 8 o'clock classes if he can work it out, because he gets the most, like the students in his class are the ones who really want to be in his class.
Interesting.
They're not just like, ooh, there's a class at 10 and I'd like to sleep till 9:30,
Yeah.
you know? And so I'll take your class. So yeah, there's something about early morning that just seems like, yeah, like the people who really want it. I'm not an early morning I am now. I would rather not be an early morning person. My whole life, I've been a late night person until my youngest gets up. He's getting up every morning.
Changed.
The latest he's gotten up in the last month is 5:30, and so.
Oh, that's early.
It's rough. Yeah, I haven't even had my coffee yet. Anyway, all right. So the word that's used here, landowner, in the Greek, oikodespotes. Landowner, I mean, works. You could also, how does the NRSV translate it as landowner?
Yes.
It could also be the householder, or the word oikos can also be a reference to the economy, like, you know, and the despotes is master or ruler or something like that. So, I mean, landowner I think is nice, but I don't really relate to landowners. Like, I mean, I own some land, but like I mow the grass. It's not like the land. But if you translate it into like the master of the economy or something like that, to me that changes the sense of it, because it's the people with the power to disperse money, to hire labor. It's like people with capital. Yeah, maybe would be a modernizing way. I don't know if that changes anything in how we think about the parable.
That's really it. I mean, it does a little bit for me, which really will sort of just circle back at the end, because when I first hear that at the beginning, I think of the ways that, you know, within our earthly systems, those people tend to behave. Yeah. With an you know, an element of greed and self-interest, and then, well, we can talk about the end at the end, but the landowner, the person with power, does retain that power to do what they think is right, not what you think is right.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And even if it's not out of a place of greed, like just out of a place of, you know, they want to use their money efficiently for what, you know, they want to pay for what they're getting or something. And they have the power to do that. Whereas
fairness carries the day.
Yes. And the laborers here don't have that power. Like, they also want to get paid for what's fair, but they don't have any control over it. And so we have a power differential clearly about the economic transfer. So the next time the landowner comes is at 9 a.m, which makes me think that the first time was probably around 6. He's coming every 3 hours or something like that. When he gets there at 9, there are other people. The CEB has standing around doing nothing. Is that what the NRSV
this is standing idle.
Oh, yeah. The Greek is argos, which, I mean, my little dictionary I'm using here says idle, lazy, useless, or ineffective, which is not exactly where I was going. I was going to go for like they just aren't working, but there's a suggestion. I mean, I guess that they're not saying the people are useless. It's saying that what they are doing, so they're just standing around in the Home Depot parking lot. There's nothing. Yeah. It's not that they're useless people, but that their current activity is useless. Is that how you read it? Or how do you read it?
Yeah, I mean, so this is where I don't know if we should be in the Home Depot parking lot anymore, because it says the marketplace. And so I just pictured people who are, you know, they're in a public space. They're not really doing anything. I mean, what's interesting to me once we get to this next layer is it is not clear to me that these people are looking for work. They're just there.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
In the first section, they clearly... you know, he goes out looking for laborers and agrees with the laborers. So, you know, and in this section, it just is sort of like, I see you are not doing anything. Why don't you come work? Oh, that made it sound like creepy and like industrialization. You can't do nothing. Why don't you work? No, I don't think that's what they're going for.
That point is interesting, that they weren't even looking for work. They're in the agora. They're in the marketplace. So there's, you know, like the center of town where all this stuff happens. So there's commerce happening all around. And I mean, the interaction here really is like they're standing around. So he says, you go to the vineyard. I don't know. I guess my question is, why do you think they're still there? Or why do you think they're there? And why do you think they aren't already working? You know what I mean? Like, did they show up later? Were they there at the beginning and got left behind? Are they looking for work, or they just want to buy, a tie-dyed T-shirt or whatever?
Right, are they looking for work, or are they...
Somehow I went into, they're tourists at the tourist place, and they're going to buy a tie-dyed T-shirt. But I don't know if that's really what you do at a tourist place. But I haven't been out of my house in 3 years, so what do I do?
Your frame of reference is old. That's a really good question. I mean, I think the text leaves all those options open. And it could be that they want work but didn't get any that day, or they want work and got there too late, or that it hasn't occurred to them that they can get work that way, and so they're just kind of pissing away the day in the public marketplace, just hanging out because they don't have anything else to do. Yeah.
I love that, Amy, sort of thinking about the openness of that and all the different ways that it can be open. I mean, maybe they've got a 18-month-old who gets up at 5:30 in the morning. So, they can't get to the marketplace at 6 o'clock. They've got to, feed the kid breakfast, or they're taking care of an elderly parent who they need to get taken care of for the day. There's all kinds of reasons that you could think of why someone would not have been there at 6 and now is there at 9. Maybe looking for work or not looking for work. I really like that possibility. And the fact that the text is not interested, suggests that we don't, we can imagine all these possibilities, which I think is useful, but we don't really want to settle on one because the text isn't trying to make a point about that.
Yeah.
Here you are at 9. I don't care why you're here at 9. I care that you're here.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get to my field. It's a little weird that they don't really have an interaction, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe it's just the way the story is told.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. We didn't, for either of them, we didn't really. I guess the first one, it tells us they agreed on a daily wage. And here, it doesn't say that. It just says, I will pay you whatever is right.
Yes.
That would make me nervous.
It would make me nervous too. Yeah. Can you say a little more about that?
I mean, that's just before it says the usual daily wage. And so fine. But whatever is right, I mean, who is to say what is right? Clearly in this case, there's someone with power. That's the landowner. And so the landowner is going to get to decide what is right. And usually that does not go well for the laborers, at least in modern society.
Yeah.
But they go. I mean, I guess if the alternative is nothing, then it seems better than nothing.
Yeah. So they're trusting this person who's come and offered them labor that he's actually going to pay them a fair wage. And maybe they're doing the math about, the day lasts 12 hours and I missed 3 of them. So I'm going to make 75% of a denarian or whatever. We don't know what they're doing, but trying to calculate what is right. The word that's used there for right is dikaios, which is the word is righteousness. I will pay you what is righteous, which has been a key word for Matthew. And so for us as listeners, right, maybe not for the laborers because they haven't been reading Matthew with us, but for us, when we hear, I'll pay you what is righteous, that should click back in our heads to the other places in this gospel where righteous has been used, all the way back to Joseph not divorcing Mary and all the way forward. So that sort of tunes our ears as listeners maybe, but you're exactly right. For the laborers, they are simply trusting what's going to happen here. So the landowner comes back, the master of the economy comes back at noon, and then comes back at 3, and the same thing happens. We assume he says, I'll pay you whatever is right. People go into the field. So all day long, you've got new sets of people headed to the field, the vineyard. And then at 5 o'clock, so we're almost, the whistle's about to blow or whatever. I'm thinking about the Flintstones when I say the whistle's going to blow.
Flintstones. Wow.
I've never worked in a place that had a whistle.
Or watched any new TV shows.
Yes, that's the 70s. I've never worked in a place with a whistle, but that was very clearly in my head. What happens at the end of the day? The whistle blows. And I was like, why am I thinking that? And I was like, wait, that's a cartoon whistle. Fred Flintstone. Anyway, you're looking at me.
No, good.
In a certain kind of way.
Great. It's good.
Now, at this point, I just don't know what this landowner is doing. Like, why on earth is he going back to the market an hour before quitting time to bring more people in? Like, you're starting to get the sense that something weird's happening in this parable. Like, whereas before I could be like, oh yeah, he's industrious and he's getting up at 6 to get moving, and at 9 o'clock he came back just to get the next round. But at 5 o'clock, man, what are you up to?
Yeah.
As you're just reading this parable, like, what do you do with that?
It's interesting going through, like, I feel like it's one thing to go back at 9 o'clock in the morning and we can say maybe there were, but like even just the 12 o'clock and the 3 o'clock, I begin to wonder, like, what is going on with the laborers? Like, are they looking for work, or have they been there all day and no one is hiring them? In which case, I would imagine there's some kind of sense of concern, like they have an increasing level of concern that they're not going to get hired, because I mean, by noon, I would imagine the hiring is done.
Yeah.
For the day.
I would think so.
So it is, and I guess there are people who are just showing up later in the day because otherwise the landowner would have caught them at noon. Right? That they weren't there at noon. And I don't know, it just raises more questions for me about not what's going on with the landowner. Like, why does he want more people to come at 5? And what's going on with the potential laborers, with the people? And what are they hoping is going to happen? Why are they in the marketplace? For me, I don't know why, but I still read the landowner's question a little bit. Why are you standing here idle all day? As this sort of everyone should have work to do, not almost without the economic component of it, almost without like, I assume you need money, but just it is good to have work.
Yeah.
And so I guess I thought that's where this story was going at this point, was that maybe these people have lost that feeling, the satisfying feeling that you get when you have meaningful work to do. And as I say that, I have this like critique of myself in my head, like, what kind of capitalistic system is this where you have to be producing by working in someone else's vineyard, and that's meaningful? And I don't know, I have sort of two different conversations going on.
Sure, yeah.
But by the end of the day, in the text, it reads to me more like we're not talking about the thing here is not the exchange of money. The thing here is that people may become so disconnected from a sense of their own sort of power in the world to do meaningful work that it's important that you offer that when you can.
Yeah, I know. I really like that, Amy. And, when I talk to people at Canvas community, or people who live on the street, and that's one of the things that they say is, over time, people, when you're on the street, people just start to look at you as though you have no value. And you start to think of yourself as though you have no value. And so for someone just to sort of look you in the eye and say, hey, you're a person who could come and do a thing with me, like that really is important for people. Not necessarily just like, everybody ought to be a cog in the capitalist machine, although maybe it is that. But just like there is dignity in being, or maybe there is indignity in sitting around all day with nothing you could do if you wanted to. And so, to say, and I do think there is, I think one can also read it in the BibleWorm Collaborative. One of the things that they were talking about was, imagine that you were the guy at the Home Depot parking lot, and maybe we don't know for sure that these people haven't been there all day, or they got there as soon in the day as they could get there for whatever reason. And you're the person who needs to feed your family, and you haven't had any work, and how anxious that would be.
Yes.
So I think you can read it either or both of those ways. These are the most anxious people in the story. They needed a job all day and they don't get one. And it's 5 o'clock. They're not going to get a job now. The landowner to me is also really interesting here because, we don't get any sort of picture about what's actually happening on the actual vineyard, And so why does he suddenly need more labor at 5? My sense of it is that he doesn't need more labor at 5. And so it's not about the labor to be done. It's about the laborers. And it's hard to imagine a scenario in which extra laborers working like 1 hour before sunset is going to really do very much production-wise. So there's something quirky now about this landowner for sure. I don't know exactly what it is, but he's not simply like following the rules of good business. He's doing something else about human dignity or about tending to the anxious laborers or something.
Hi, I'm Terry Peterson, minister of St. John's Church of Scotland in Gourock, west of Glasgow on the Scottish coast. And I am the liturgy writer for BibleWorm, which means I get to spend a lot of time listening to Bobby and Amy, and that is a great joy. It is fascinating to hear them read and talk through stories I thought I knew pretty well, since I'm starting my third time through the narrative lectionary now. I always come away with more ideas than I can fit into a liturgy or a sermon, and working with them has deepened my own spiritual life as I write liturgy that follows the contours of their conversations. I appreciate that they don't shy away from the difficult parts, and that they always find connections between these ancient texts and our contemporary life. And it's fun for me to work those connections into liturgy that empowers worshiping communities to speak to and about God in new ways. If you join the BibleWorm Patreon at the Liturgy Worm level or higher, you'll have access to those liturgies and prayers that you can use or adapt, as well as early access to the podcast. Or there are other levels with different benefits, including Bible studies, access to the BibleWorm Collaborative Discussion Group, and more. Visit patreon.com/BibleWorm podcast to help Bobby and Amy continue creating this incredible resource for people of faith around the world. And now back to this week's podcast.
Anything else we want to say about the hiring part of this parable?
I don't think so.
I think if you've read this section with a sense of fairness is the point, which is, kind of what it's setting up for the spoiler alert, the next part of the parable.
Yeah.
You would imagine that the people who got hired at 6 are going to be paid a denarian, the people at 9, 3/4, people at noon and a half. The last hour people are going to get whatever, 1/12 of a denarian. And so that's what would be fair. And you and I have talked a number of times on the podcast in this Matthew series about fairness. You were talking about it, fairness. It's not fairness or equity. That's the point. That was with the lost sheep parable. It's not about fairness or equity. It's about making sure each sheep has what it needs or something like that.
Yeah. Compassion versus fairness.
Yeah. So let's see how that plays out in this parable.
Okay.
When the evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the workers and give them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and moving on finally to the first." When those who were hired at 5 PM came, each one received a denarian. Now when those hired first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received a denarian. When they received it, they grumbled against the landowner. "These who were hired last worked 1 hour, and they received the same pay as we did, even though we had to work the whole day in the hot sun." But he replied to one of them, "Friend, I did you no wrong. Didn't I agree to pay you a denarian? Take what belongs to you and go. I want to give to this one who was hired last the same as I give to you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with what belongs to me? Or are you resentful because I'm generous?" So those who are last will be first, and those who are first will be last.
Oh, Bobby, I'm usually all about giving up the fairness model, but this is a hard story for me. I'm glad that you really like it. It's hard for me.
Can you talk through that a little bit? I'm so interested in where that leads you.
What is your problem, Amy? The title of this next thing is "What is your problem, Amy?" I think some of it is in my head. I have this sort of modern conversation about salary fairness.
Yeah.
And what happens to a lot of minorities of many types when no one's talking about what other people make. And it's like, well, you agreed to your salary, so what are you complaining about? If I choose to pay this other person twice as much, that has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And this sort of evolving conversation that like we need to be talking about what we're making, because people who were never told to advocate for themselves are getting screwed.
Yeah.
Now I truly recognize that's not really what's going on here, but I can't get that thing out of my head.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important, Amy, and keeping, as we try to keep the earthly side of the kingdom of heaven in mind and thinking about salary fairness and the ways that gets exploited. I think that is super important. If it were the case that somebody were being paid unjustly here, I don't even quite know how to language it. Like, if the people at the beginning of the text had not known to negotiate for a fair wage, then I would fully say, yes, this is a problem. But in fact, they're getting paid fairly, right? They're getting paid what they're worth. A day's labor is worth a day's wage. You labor a day, you get a day's wage. So there's nothing exploitative there.
True.
It's just that now you could have come at 5 and still gotten the same day's wage. And so the unfairness is not about stinginess, it's about over generosity. But I mean, it still rubs you the wrong way. And I think this parable is supposed to rub you the wrong way. But that, it's not exactly, I don't know. Maybe it is.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I can't let go of I don't know, what is your problem, Amy? But if the people saying we have been laboring in the scorching sun for 12 hours now, and yeah, we are being paid a fair wage, but again, fairness is relative. And now that you've paid them 12 times higher a pay rate than you've paid us, now that doesn't seem fair. Again, fairness is not the thing. Yeah.
I really appreciate that because, sometimes when I read this parable, I'm like, you silly 9 o'clock or 6 o'clock people, y'all just need to get over yourselves. And I love that you are totally on their side.
I'm one of the people. I'm an early bird.
Yeah, no, I love it. Cause I mean, yeah.
Oh.
And yeah.
But it's not, but I need you to help me open up to what this text is actually trying to do.
Well, I don't know that I can do that, but one of the things that I'm really appreciating about you right at this exact moment is, in academia where I live most of my life, there is this kind of issue in which women on a college campus do a lot of extra work in sort of subtle ways that they are not recognized or compensated for. And then a lot of men like myself sort of rock up late in the day. And I do my fair amount of work around here too,
Yes,
it is the sort of the way that it goes that when we don't talk about fairness, then it often is exactly what you said. It's women and minorities who of all kinds who are come out on the short end of that stick. And so I don't want to jump past that. I don't think that's what Jesus is after here.
No,
but I think it's
sure
absolutely worth thinking about.
One of the notes in my I read from the Jewish Annotated New Testament, and one of the notes in here is that the issue, as I think you have already sort of pointed to, or maybe we have pointed to in our conversation, is that the issue is not at the end of the story, not what is fair, but what is right.
Yeah.
And I agree that should be the issue, and I think that consistently has been the issue in the New Testament and also in the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah.
But my question is, why is it right to pay them the same? Is it because the people who came at the end of the day have a greater need? Are we supposed to sort of import that background? Is it because it's none of anyone else's business? Why is it right?
The other issue that I think is an interesting one, and the BibleWorm Collaborative pointed this out as well, is if the landowner had simply paid the people in the same order that he had hired them, nobody would have known the difference.
Yep. Yes.
So the people at the end of the day would have been like, oh, that was amazing. I got paid the full day. But the beginning people wouldn't have known.
That is exactly
and so
right.
This is sort of like finger in your eye kind of thing to tell it backwards or to pay them backwards in the way Jesus has chosen to tell the story. Amy, what this reminds me of is conversation. Do you remember? I think it might have been I don't even remember they all run together now, but we talked about the story of manna in the wilderness in Exodus chapter 16. And in that story, some people go out and gather more than they need, and some people go out and gather less than they need. And then somehow magically it just ends up being exactly what they need. We've also had this in the Lord's Prayer that we talked about this summer, give us this day our daily bread. We have had a theme going on as we've read the Bible. It's not our theme, I don't think. It's a biblical theme, that what matters is that everyone in the community has enough for the day. And we don't know why these people didn't come till 5. In the manna story, we don't know why some people gathered less and some people gathered more. We just know that they did. And in some sense, this text, I think, is inviting us not to care why some people came late in the day. Maybe they had legitimate reasons. Maybe they've been waiting there all morning. Maybe they went to the wrong side of the labor pool where the hiring was not as good. Like, I don't know. Maybe they are lazy and they just didn't get out of bed till 4:45. And so the claim here, I think, is those people also deserve the wage of the day. They need it. They need enough for today. Now, what are they going to do tomorrow? When I read this when I read this at Mercy Church a few years ago, my friends were like, "Man, tomorrow I'm going to show up at 5."
I know.
And I was like, "Yeah."
I mean,
this is a highly exploitable system.
It is, although what you said was so helpful to me, Bobby, because it reminded me, I think the last time we were talking, I noticed that the text is really concerned about offering forgiveness, but not so concerned about what do you do when you have caused harm.
Yeah.
Which is not to say it's not an issue. People cause harm. That's not who the text is talking to right now. That's not what the text is about.
Right.
And I don't know if this is quite parallel. It feels parallel in my head, but it's talking to the people who have power, who have some kind of economic capacity to, or like in whatever way you have power, this is how you should use your power. It's not talking about should you or should you not get up in the morning and do work.
Right.
Although you could, yes, when you read this story, then what time do you set your alarm for in the morning is a whole other thing. But maybe I can try to settle on that's not the point.
To me, I think one of the reasons that I probably like this parable is because I want to identify with the master of the economy, because that's more like my social position. And when you read it that way, the message is exactly like, don't be unjust to anyone. So somebody who works a day should be paid for the day, and then be as generous as you possibly can with everyone else. Now, whether it's a smart idea to like wield your generosity in front of the people. Yeah, I don't know about that part, but there's a nice message there about if you've got the resources. So this landowner is not thinking, I've only got 1 hour left. Like, they're not really going to do anything valuable for me, so I just am not going to go back and get more people. He's not doing any of that kind of math. He's a terrible business owner in that sense, paying people way more than what they have provided for him labor-wise. And so there's a generosity there, don't bean count. And so I like that because to me it's an important reminder. But I take your point from the other side.
I love the question that you raised from the BibleWorm Collaborative, and I have written a similar question in the margin of my text. Did y'all come? So the question being, the owner could have been more subtle about this.
Yes.
by paying the people who came first, and and it wouldn't have sort of kind of rubbed in their face that the people who just got there are getting the same amount of money. Did you all come to anything about why that's not how the story goes?
Well, no. But
okay, good. Great.
But here's what I'm thinking right now is we just had that sequence, which we said didn't matter for this parable, in chapter 19, where the rich man comes and then goes away. And then the disciples say, but what about us? We've been doing this since day one. And then Jesus tells them this parable. And I mean, one way of reading what Jesus is doing is he's taken a little bit of a dig at the disciples to say, yes, you have done what you need to do, and so you are in the kingdom, you're in the vineyard, you've been paid fairly, but don't think because you got there first and did it first that you're going to be more favored. It comes back to that idea of welcoming, like once you stop asking who's the greatest and start asking how can I welcome people in, which we talked about a few weeks ago, then now you've got it. And so this could be read as sort of a warning to people who got there early.
Yes.
Not to jealously guard your special ness.
Yes, good. So now maybe it's time to move out of the parable.
Yeah.
And say, what are we actually talking about here?
I think everything that we've been talking about is actually what we're talking about, in that sense of
good.
The kingdom of heaven on earth, I think, looks like an economics in which people are paid by what they need for the day and not by the value of the actual labor they have actually done. And that's a pretty radical idea. And I think that is very much in this text. But there is more to it than that, as you're gesturing to that now. But we've got this other sense of the kingdom and the question of like community and the question of salvation. Like those are also I don't know if they're in the background or the foreground. In our conversation, they're in the background. But I don't know. What do you want to think about, like the eternal kingdom of heaven and the significance of that, or do you want to think about the community of faith and what the implications are for that?
I mean, that I'm always kind of located in the community of faith because that's more the world that the world of my imaginings and the world of my life.
So if you move this parable into that setting, then what becomes the point?
I can see a sort of, just because someone comes to a set of a way of being in the world, becomes a follower of Jesus or a member of the Jewish community or whatever it is, later in their life does not make them a less loved and valuable part of the community.
Right.
Yeah, I certainly can. I can see that. And I can let go of my economic fairness model.
I don't think you need to let go. I don't think you do at all. But the BibleWorm Collaborative was thinking about something similar in terms of the way that our faith communities can, celebrate the pillars of the church, the long-standing members, and people who come in new don't quite know how to fit in. Yes. They don't know who's who or what's what. Or even some people thinking about celebrating. Somebody was talking about the stained glass windows in their sanctuary and who dedicated them and what are the names that are displayed and who were they and what role do they play? What role does the past play in your present? Which to me is such interesting questions. And the tendency, I think, among many of us is to privilege the things of the past and to privilege the tradition.
Yeah.
Privilege those who got there first, whether it's ourselves or someone else.
Right.
And this passage is guarding against that, to say that the latecomers matter just as much.
Right. Yes. Yeah. No, several congregations where I've worked, the founding members of the community, it is hard for them not to have sort of undue influence in how things unfold. And we've had to be really intentional about like one member, one vote, like one.
Yes.
It has to be, or there's not going to be a future,
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about the conversation that we're having is normally the first move that people want to make when they read this parable is to say, oh, the landowner is God and the people are the, coming into heaven. Mm-hmm. And our way our conversation has gone is exactly backwards of the way this sometimes goes, where you start with God and then you say like, oh yeah, there's economic implications and community implications. Here we've come the other direction.
Yeah.
This is saying that the kingdom of heaven is like this, which suggests, not only the way that we ought to be living kingdom values here and now, but also something about the scope of God's embrace, the scope of God's salvation, however you want to think about it. If we read the landowner as God, which I think this text is inviting us to do, it's not always the case.
The kingdom of heaven is the landowner. I think that's just a weird syntax thing.
No, the kingdom of heaven is like this story. in which there is a landowner.
So you read it as the kingdom of heaven is like this. A landowner went out early.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's how I read it.
That's not what it says in my translation. It says the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Moving on.
It's like when you're reading rabbinic literature and it just says a parable, and then it tells a story about a king.
Yeah.
And to me, that's sort of the same. That's sort of what this is doing.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It does not have to necessarily be the case that the most powerful person in every parable is God. But I think in this particular case, that probably is a reasonable way to read it in any case. If you put it in that register, what might this tell us about God? Where do you come out?
I mean, I guess I imagine if we put it in that register, then I imagine the vineyard as sort of as being the proverbial kingdom of heaven that all of us that needs people working for real to bring it to be, to bring it to care for it and build it. And it needs all the workers at all the times. And so if you come there early, fantastic. If you come there halfway through the day, we need you. If you come there for the last, or that everyone is needed and valued whenever they get there.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if you weren't working all day and then you came in only at 5 o'clock when the sun is already past its peak, you have like this crazy rush of energy and you can, okay, I'm just coming up with
No, that's actually the way that works in the Christian community. I don't know if it's the same in the Jewish community, but people who have just found the faith tend to be very highly energized about doing the labor of the community, labor of the kingdom. And then we sort of over time are like, ho-hum, So we do need those 5 o'clock folk for sure. I really like that way of reading it, and to say there's an inexhaustible amount of work to try to bring people to the kingdom, both now and future, and we take all comers.
Yeah.
And then the character of God is the God who has plenty of work for everyone to do, and also values all the laborers equally. So it doesn't matter how late you come to faith, how late you come to the work of the kingdom. It doesn't matter, if you slept late this morning, it doesn't matter. Just, you're invited in. You're invited into the work. You're invited into the kingdom. I think that's really lovely and equally valued in quite a literal sense. Like, these folks all receive equal value for the work that they did. And so you don't need to think the fact that I started late means that the work I've done is less valuable. It is exactly as valuable as the work that other people have done. Just making me, now it's rubbing me wrong. That's funny. Now I've finally come around to wait, I did a lot of stuff. And now people just pop in at the last minute and they're like, woohoo. Yeah. And one of the things I love about this parable is that it's, there is an image of a God then who is endlessly generous. It rubs against me the wrong way a little bit because I sometimes feel like I deserve more reward because I have labored long. And so this parable exposes that in me in a way that it annoys me, but also I find it pretty useful.
Yeah. And
to say wow, that the God that I claim is a God who is endlessly generous to everyone, even the latest comer. That's a really, really beautiful thing. And then to say, therefore, so also should I be.
Yeah.
There's a preacher, Eugene Lowry. I think he taught at Vanderbilt, maybe. Anyway, he has this book called The Homiletical Plot. But we watched a video of him preaching on this parable when I was in seminary. And he was this big man. He looked kind of like Abraham Lincoln with a real deep voice. And he said that he was giving the response of the earliest laborers, and he would say, "We've been cheated." So whenever I read this story, I hear his voice, cheated. I do sometimes feel cheated, but the fact is that this parable is about God being endlessly generous. Amy, anything else we need to say about the parable as a parable? Ooh, you want to retitle the parable? You do not.
That's actually a really, I don't know if I want to retitle a parable, but I think that where I'm coming down after this conversation is that it's really important to read this as being directed at the people in power.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know how to retitle that parable.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so like the parable of the generous business owner or something like that, the parable of the generous landowner, economy master. It's not a very pithy parable of the one who
it's not poetic, but that
treats everyone equally. Yeah. I'm sure AJ had a good title for it. I can't remember what it was right now.
AJ's is, well, at least in this, that's Amy Jill Levine. It says the parable of the workers in the vineyard.
What?
Yes.
Maybe that's the NRSV's title, because she digs on that pretty hard.
Oh, maybe, maybe it's NRSV's. Like the parable of the latecomers. Latecomer, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I like the question, though.
All right, Amy. So we've talked a little bit about the way this parable connects. Actually, we've talked since the very first moments about the way this parable connects to the contemporary world. But when you're thinking about, like, what's the sort of takeaway that feels most relevant or most urgent for modern life, what do you come up with?
Okay, I will tell you what is coming to my mind now, and it is certainly because of other things that I happen to be reading. But it's a little bit based in Kohelet, Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
Which one of the takeaways that I have from that book is not to think about the role of work in my life as something that I'm trying to sort of do as little of as possible, like try to get it done and then I'll get to live my life. Like it's just check off the things and then my life starts after that. But instead to find work that is meaningful to me or accept the role of work in my life and stop trying to rush through it so that something else can happen, but to like realize that all of these things, like the totality of this is my life and to find meaning and joy in that. And if I can think about it that way and think about, I mean, it's hard when it says like, we've been out in the scorching sun all day. Like that doesn't sound very pleasant. But if we think of it as a parable of people who have come to their life of faith earlier, and yes, we know that that is hard, like that asks hard things of you, but also people who have come to that life of faith, there's not another way to be that is better. Like that is the source of your meaning, and you want to be there and you are ready to be there. And of course it's hard, but you're not doing it for the reward. You're doing it because you actually believe that this is the way the world works and this is the only thing that makes sense. I mean, if people are really just in it for their like day's pay at the end or their salvation at the end time or like whatever, like if you're really only in it for that end reward, then I can see getting kind of like grabby about these things and be like, I put in more time than you did. But if you're not in it just for that and you actually you live in that way because it is meaningful for you, then it's not a bad thing to have been in the vineyard longer. Like where else would you have been? You don't want to sleep late.
I love that. And I love it especially as somebody who's like, the boundary between my work and my hobbies is very amorphous. Mm-hmm. And because I do things that I love. And so, you know, as this part of, when I'm talking to you on BibleWorm, is this part of my job or is it part of my life?
Right.
And, you know, what would I do if I had a day off? Well, maybe I would record a podcast, you know, like, I don't know, there's a lot on my weekends. I pastor a community and I do, you know, and I don't think of those as work. I think of them as life. And I think that's a really helpful way. Where else would you be? I like that. I like that a lot.
What about you, Bobby?
Well, I feel like I say the same thing every week, and maybe it's because Jesus says the same thing all the way through Matthew. But to me, this parable is really the rubber's meeting the road on this issue of how does this master of the economy treat the people who are vulnerable in his world, the day laborers, who he has the power to exploit, presumably, if he wants to. And, you know, the text says he's going to treat them dikaios, that he's going to treat them justly. And what that seems to mean is to pay them what they need for the day, no matter how much or how little work they did for him. And so just that level of generosity sort of being the expectation, like that's what is right.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a real challenge there to say, insofar as it's in my power, I ought to be generous to everyone. And what I ought to be valuing is that all of my neighbors should have enough, shouldn't have to live an anxious life about whether they can feed themselves and their families for the day. They should just know. And I shouldn't be in the business of, although the landowner does ask why the 5 o'clock people were still there at 5. So I was about to say I shouldn't be in the business of asking, but this text is not particularly interested in why people showed up when they showed up.
Yeah.
And so I think, so then neither should I be. I also really love the image of God as being like this, that God is sort of values everyone equally, regardless of what they're able to contribute. I like that image of God much more than a God who's like counting the beans about what I did or didn't do on any given day. Here's the merit you deserve. There's a sense in this text in which you need to end up in the vineyard, like you need to do something, but the bar is a little bit low. It's not like, a checklist of things that you deserve a certain amount of God's grace and compassion. It's, if you make it at 5 o'clock, like you're fully in God's good graces, full reward. Like I really love that image of a God who's just looking to be generous with us. I think that's a really nice way to think about God.
Yeah. Really interesting parable, Bobby.
Next week, we're going to get Matthew's version of the parable of the wedding banquet in Matthew 22, 1-14. Luke's version of this parable is one of my most favorite texts in the whole Bible. Matthew's version I really struggle with, and so you're going to have to help me think about.
Ooh, I'm excited now.
Although, as Amy Jo Levine also says, parables, the struggling is the point of the parables. If you're like, yeah, I love that parable, then maybe you haven't read it correctly. So maybe the struggle will prove
Then I
valuable.
read this parable really well.
You did. Yeah, you raised great questions about it. All right, Amy, thanks for the conversation. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Y'all have a good week.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of BibleWorm. If you've enjoyed this free podcast, we hope you'll help us keep it going by joining our Patreon for as little as $4 per month. You can also sign up for other goodies like early access, video lectures, weekly liturgies, and more. Visit patreon.com/BibleWorm podcast for details.
BibleWorm is produced by Bobby Williamson and edited by Joel and Laura Becker. Our theme song is sung by Colin Bagby, and our theme music is The World at Large by Dano Songs. Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters for helping to make this podcast possible.
Join us next time when we'll read the parable of the wedding banquet as told in Matthew 22, 1-14. Until then, keep on digging.